The wife who'd been with me when I had nothing, who'd helped me build everything from the ground up, had become insatiable. Now, she was scheming to take my company. She saw the money, the real money, and decided she wanted it all for herself. Fine, if that's what you want, I'll give you a gift you'll never forget. A way for you and your lover to be together forever. I hope you like it. You thought you were being so clever, so discreet, but I've known for a long time. Now I'll just sit back and watch you two animals tear each other apart. You'll learn the hard way who the real predator is. I won't let you live well, but I won't give you the mercy of a quick death either. You'll have the rest of your life to repent in some cartel hellhole south of the border. Mr. Benjamin Cole, we're from the District Court of Chicago. You're being sued for contract fraud. This is a summons. You're required to appear at the specified date and time. The officer in front of me was sharp, professional, but his words sent a chill through the open plan office. The amount involved in this case is substantial, sir. We have to ask for your cooperation. Please refrain from leaving the Chicago metropolitan area unless absolutely necessary. I raised an eyebrow, my eyes glancing over the summons with pure contempt. A smirk played on my lips as I slowly signed my name, my expression a mask of indifference. Once they had what they needed, the officers nodded curtly, took their copy, and left. The moment their figures vanished down the hall, the corridor filled with employees peeking out from their cubicles. The old saying about rats jumping a sinking ship was on full display. The hushed whispers were the first sign of the coming storm. Back when I was on top of the world, I was surrounded by sycophants. And now, they couldn't get away from me fast enough. The contrast was almost laughable. Did you hear? Sounds like Mr. Cole is in deep this time, tangled up in a bunch of major financial lawsuits. Are you kidding? Haven't you seen how slammed the legal and sales departments have been? And they're being so secretive about it. I can't believe it. I heard he's on the hook for hundreds of millions. There's no way he gets out of this. He's probably going to do time. Employees huddled in small groups, their voices low, buzzing with speculation. By my office door, my assistant's face was dark enough to curdle milk. He stared daggers at the gossiping staff, his mind clearly racing. He already knew the truth, that the allegations were utter bullshit. This was all part of the trap. Ben, he said, his voice tight with concern. Do you think we need to do some damage control? Reassure everyone. He was my first hire, fiercely loyal to me and the company we'd built. I shook my head, my gaze lost in the brilliant slash of sunlight across my desk. You're too close to it, Mark. Don't let this noise disrupt the plan. I waved a hand, dismissing him. Just then, the office door flew open and a slender figure rushed in. Sophia Warner's eyes were red-rimmed as she threw herself into my arms. Ben, none of this is true, right? Don't worry. I'll find a way to help you. We'll get through this together. Mark stood awkwardly to the side, but played his part perfectly. Mrs. Cole, it's true. We've been having some disputes with a few other companies recently. But please, don't worry. We're doing everything we can to resolve it. Mark was good. His words were meant to be comforting, but they were laced with just the right amount of hopelessness. As I watched Sophia leave, her face a tear-streaked mess, Mark's expression softened with a flicker of pity. Ben, she seems genuinely worried about you. Are you absolutely sure about this? The company could take a serious hit. I thought of Sophia's red-rimmed eyes, her makeup ruined, her whole appearance one of frantic distress. Sometimes, I honestly couldn't tell if this woman truly loved me or was just a world-class actress. I was leaning heavily toward the latter, but it didn't matter anymore. The decision was made. I was going to see it through. We're not discussing it again, I said flatly. And one more thing, stall the court proceedings as long as possible. Let's let this play out for a while. The effect will be much better. Seeing my resolve, Mark said no more and quietly closed the door behind him. Thinking of Sophia's performance, a self-mocking smile touched my lips. I looked down at the summons on my desk and murmured to myself, Sophia, oh Sophia, the moment you made your move, you should have known I would never, ever let you get away with it. Growing up, I was the kid everyone envied, the straight-A student from a perfectly average middle-class family. But when it came to romance, I was clueless. It just never clicked for me. It wasn't that no one was interested. I just coldly turned down anyone who tried. By the time I'd built a successful startup, I was deeply suspicious of anyone who got close, terrified they were only after my money. Then Sophia appeared. She wasn't like the others. She was just there, quietly supporting me, always knowing exactly when I was at my most vulnerable, offering the perfect words of comfort. She knew my favorite foods, remembered my habits. No matter how late, if I needed her, I'd be met with a smile so warm it could melt steel. Sophia filled a void inside me I didn't even know existed. Her Gentleness and consideration slowly chipped away at my defenses. For 5 years, she never once brought up marriage. It wasn't until her own small marketing firm started taking off that she made her move by unhesitatingly merging it with my company. That was the moment I fell completely. I planned an extravagant proposal. Her company was her dowry, and in return, I gave her 20% of my company's stock as a wedding gift. If things had just stayed like that, it would have been perfect. But reality has a sick sense of humor. I was buried in work, flying all over the country to close deals. I'll admit, I neglected her. But I never imagined the person sleeping next to me was orchestrating a coup to have me thrown out of my own life. A knock on the door, and Mark walked in holding folder. "Ben, here's the stock transfer agreement you asked for. It's all ironclad." I nodded. Some things didn't need to be spelled out. In my world, there was no forgiveness for betrayal. "Go over those other contracts one more time. I want them flawless," I instructed. "And give me the divorce papers. I want her to walk away with nothing." I knew our assets were substantial, but nearly everything was tied up in the company. For a trader, leaving with nothing was just the beginning. When I got home that evening, Sophia was waiting for me, just like always. She looked worn out today, but I could still catch the flicker of calculation in her eyes. Seeing me, she stood and walked toward me, her gaze dripping with affection. "Ben, don't you worry. I won't let them destroy everything we've built." But the faint scent of another man's cologne on her was like a needle to the heart. It wasn't a brand I ever wore. "Don't worry," I said, my voice unervingly calm. "The company will be fine." The smile I forced onto my face was strained, a perfect portrayal of a man on the brink of ruin. "Ben, no matter what happens, we'll face it together. I promise," Sophia said, her voice thick with emotion. I just smiled without responding. Sophia, I thought, you have no idea what you're about to lose." Using the excuse of work, I packed a bag with a few changes of clothes and left. I wouldn't be coming home for a while. I was afraid if I stayed, I might actually strangle her. Sitting in my car, my mind drifted back. If it hadn't been for that night 2 months ago, I'd still be in the dark. Sophia had been dying to go to that new fusion place downtown, so I'd finally cleared my schedule and made a reservation weeks in advance. I don't really care for all that romantic stuff, but if it made her happy, I was happy to do it. That night, Sophia seemed thrilled, but also distracted. Throughout the meal, I doted on her, making sure everything was perfect. The ambience was romantic, the mood intimate. At one point, she wrapped her arms around my neck, her voice syrupy sweet. "I must have been a saint in a past life to deserve a husband as wonderful as you." I just smiled, my heart full. At that moment, my world revolved around her. I didn't know then that there was already another man in her life, Julian Vance. After dinner, Sophia said it had been too long since we'd just relaxed together, so we went for coffee. But the mood soured. She spent the entire time with her head down, constantly messaging on her phone, a small smile playing on her lips. "What's so funny, Sophia?" I asked, a hint of annoyance in my voice. As I leaned in to see, she instinctively locked her phone and snuggled against me. "Oh, nothing. It's just that project I've been working on. It's going really well." I was skeptical, but managed a patient smile. "It's just one project. Let your team handle the details." Sophia pouted, half joking, half complaining. "I can't do that. You work so hard every day, I have to pull my weight too. Who knows if you'll still want me around later." At the time, I didn't think much of it. Sophia had always been ambitious, a shark in her own right. It made sense she'd want to conquer the business world. I laughed and reassured her, swearing I was only worried about her burning out, that I'd always want her. Thinking back on it now, the irony is staggering. She had the audacity to bring up her lover right in front of my face, dressing him up as a business partner, confident I'd never figure it out. And I wouldn't have, if our head of legal hadn't discovered a problem with the contract. I might never have believed that Sophia, my wife, was trying to kick me out of my own company. The next day, as soon as I got to the office, the head of our legal department was waiting for me, his expression grim. "Mr. Lou, what is it?" I asked, my stomach tightening at his hesitant demeanor. I unlocked my office and waved him in. "Let's hear it, Mr. Lou pulled a photocopied document from his briefcase and handed it to me. I took it confused, but as I read, my brow furrowed. Something was very wrong. This contract was full of holes. "You see it too, don't you, Mr. Cole?" "Mrs. Cole brought this to us," he explained. "She said you'd already approved it, but I didn't feel right about it, so I wanted to bring it to you personally." His words landed like a lead weight in my gut. Sophia brought this in? This wasn't her style at all. Since the day I founded this company, I had a strict rule. Every contract had to be vetted by legal before I even looked at it. Thank God Lou was a professional and hadn't just rubber-stamped it because she was my wife. I see, I said. Good work. Kill this version. I want you to draft a new one, and I want you to build a trap into it. Let's find out who has the balls to try and screw me. Lou nodded and left. After a moment, I stood up and walked out of my office. Feigning nonchalance, I went to the kitchenette near Sophia's office to make a coffee, taking my time. Through the glass wall, I could see her on the phone. Whatever was being said on the other end was making her beam. A few minutes later, she put on her coat and headed for the door, stopping short when she saw me. A flicker of awkwardness crossed her face before she replaced it with a look of apology. Honey, I have to run. The client for that project I've been managing wants to sign today. I won't be able to make lunch. I smiled and nodded, putting on a show of protest. Is it that important? Let someone from the sales team handle it. I hate seeing you run around like this. I made a move as if to call my assistant, but Sophia quickly grabbed my arm, giving me a playful look. Ben, I'm not made of glass. I started this deal, and I want to see it through. Then, as if sensing my skepticism, she added with a pout, I don't want you to have to do everything yourself. Don't worry, I'll be back before you know it. I sighed, feigning defeat. All right, fine. Go on. Call me when you're done, and we'll get dinner tonight. She smiled and gave me a quick kiss on the cheek. Deal. I watched her walk away, a cold smile forming on my lips. Now we'd see if they were smart enough to spot the trap legal was setting for them. To be honest, I didn't expect them to sign it. Anyone who read it carefully would see the poison pill hidden inside. I was back at my desk working when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Mark. He worked fast. He'd already hired a private investigator that morning to tail Sophia. The message contained a video and several photos. I clicked on them, my blood pressure rising with every image. In the photos, Sophia and Julian Vance were locked in an embrace. How beautifully ironic. The video was grainy, shot from a distance, but the audio was just clear enough. Babe, it's unbelievable how much Ben trusts you, Julian was saying, holding up the contract, clearly too smug to inspect it closely. He signed something this full of holes without even a second glance. Sophia laughed, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Of course he did. Once this is done, the entire company is mine. Then we can have anything we want. If he wasn't so damn good at making money, I never would have married him in the first place. The rest of their conversation was even more vile. They restrained themselves in public, but their intentions were clear. And yet, I felt a strange calm. They weren't just cheating. They were coming for my entire life's work. What did a simple affair matter compared to that? Listening to their crude, triumphant dialogue, only one thought solidified in my mind. I would never let them have an easy life, nor would I grant them a quick death. They would suffer, and only after they had been through hell would I send them on their final trip. I stared blankly at the investigative report Mark had placed on my desk. According to the file, Julian Vance was an old classmate of Sophia's from college, one of the big men on campus back in the day. Sophia had asked him out several times, but he'd always turned her down. So what was this? The one that got away? They had reconnected last year. Julian's firm had a partnership with mine, and I guess seeing the scale of my success gave him ideas. I can honestly say I had never mistreated Sophia. As busy as I was, I always made time for her. And financially, she wanted for nothing. I had given her everything, and she still chose to betray me. For a moment, I didn't know if I should feel lucky for finding out early or just feel like a fool for being so blind. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how for the past year, Sophia had been the same gentle, loving wife. A wave of nausea washed over me. That woman didn't love anyone but herself. Now I had two options. I could send them to hell now, or I could play with them for a while first, then send them to hell. A humorless smile crossed my face. It didn't really matter what I chose. Traitors are the most despicable creatures on earth. They don't deserve forgiveness. Knock, knock, knock. The door opened, and it was Sophia. She walked in, taking off her coat as if it were any other day, and handed me an insulated food container. Then, no matter what's happening, you still have to eat. I forced a smile and pulled her into my arms. She didn't resist. Her eyes fell on the mountain of paperwork on my desk, and a look of concern crossed her face. What's wrong? Is it really that bad? I shook my head, not answering directly. After a pause, I decided to test her. Sophia, if I went bankrupt, would you leave me? She froze for a second. Then, forcing a smile, she gently pulled away from my embrace, her voice suddenly stiff. Of course not. I only love you. The whole world could abandon you, but I never will. I swear it. Honey, why would you even ask that? I scoffed internally at her claim of loving only me, but my face remained a perfect mask. I just shook my head. It's just, I wouldn't want to drag you down with me. Sophia visibly relaxed, reaching up to stroke my hair. Don't be scared. I'm not going anywhere. I can't live without you, you know that. Looking in her deep, soulful eyes, I felt a sharp, cold sting. She couldn't live without me? More like she couldn't live without my money. The video wasn't fake. The smile on her face when she'd said those horrible things wasn't fake. Fine. She wanted to be an actress? I'd play along. I took the container and quickly ate the food inside. Seeing her yawn, I stood up. You're tired. How about a pull all-nighter here? I'll have the driver take you home. She didn't protest, but my sudden change in behavior clearly made her uneasy. She was sure her affair with Julian was a well-kept secret, but something was off, and she could feel it. Watching the taillights of her car disappear, a smile crept onto my face. Sophia really couldn't wait, could she? My guess was she only came tonight to feel out the situation, and I bet she wouldn't be going home. Otherwise, why refuse the driver I offered? My prediction was spot on. The P.I. was a true professional. Sophia left the office and drove straight to Julian's apartment. After a quick look around to make sure no one was watching, she slipped inside. I don't know how the P.I. did it, but he managed to get audio from inside the apartment. The moment they were through the door, they fell into bed. After they were finished, the conversation turned back to the company. Babe, do you think Ben can really pull through this time? Julian asked. If the company actually goes bankrupt, our contract is worthless. Sophia was silent for a long moment before answering. I don't know, but it looks bad. The legal team is working around the clock. When I was there tonight, his desk was buried in paperwork, and the look in his eyes, I don't think he was faking it. Julian took a deep breath, gazing at her with what he probably thought was profound love. Then you need to divorce him fast. If this is real, he's going to be facing hundreds of millions in debt. Sophia frowned. Julian, if I divorce him now, I'll have to walk away with nothing. All our assets are in the company's name. If I try to claim any of them, I'll have to take on the debt, too. Julian chuckled. What are you worried about? You still have that condo in Lincoln Park, right? Just take that. We've siphoned off plenty of cash this past year. It's more than enough for us to live on. You don't need to suffer with him. He continued. And if by some miracle the company survives, our contract will let us carve off a huge piece for ourselves. Either way, we can't lose. Julian's words made Sophia pause and think. He was right. The money they'd already moved was enough to ensure a comfortable life for the rest of her days. She didn't need to go down with Ben. Her youth was meant for enjoying, not for wasting away. She, Sophia Warner, was just an ordinary girl. She'd chosen Ben for his money, so it was only logical that she'd leave him to avoid being poor. The idea of a simple, ordinary life was unbearable to her. Julian's reappearance had nurtured the seed of greed inside her. At first, when I was away on business, he'd filled the void, taking her to dinner, movies, on trips. He fed her vanity and gave her the emotional validation she craved. Soon, it spiraled out of control. Now, the thought of facing a future of endless debt filled her with terror. She was terrified of losing everything. I sent Mark away on a special assignment. When he returned 10 days later, he had handled everything I'd asked of him. This company was my life's work. I would never hand it over to anyone. Ben, it's all set. When do you want to make your move? I let out a low chuckle. The hearing is in a month. Let's file the breach of contract suit against Julian's company the day after. The timing will be perfect. Mark nodded. And the divorce? Yes. Let's get it done in the next few days. She wants a Lincoln Park condo, right? Give it to her. It's harder to track a rat without a nest. We can't have her running off. I had no intention of letting either of them off easy. Death would be a release. For them, it would be a mercy they hadn't earned. Over the last 10 days, Sophia had come by the office every day at first. Then, it dwindled to just phone calls. Yesterday, there wasn't even a call. I'm not blind. I saw the change in her. Initially, her face was a mask of anxiety. Gradually, she stopped caring. Even when we did see each other, an awkward distance had grown between us. 2 weeks of manufacture crisis was all it took for her true colors to show. I pulled the divorce papers from my desk drawer. The time was right. Sophia, I hope you're pleasantly surprised. When she heard the news, she didn't even bother pretending anymore. She came to my office with Julian at her side. The three of us sat facing each other. Julian spoke first, his tone pure provocation. Ben, you know who I am, right? I nodded silently. Then you should know that the contract you signed with my company comes with a steep penalty if you default. But I'll be generous. You divorce Sophia, give her the Lincoln Park condo, and ensure she has no connection to any of your debts. I remained silent. Julian, taking my silence for defeat, pressed his advantage. If you know what's good for you, I might even take pity on you when you're bankrupt and let it slide. Otherwise, you can rot in prison. He smirked. Sophia already told me. She has no intention of suffering with you. Don't think you're still the great Ben Cole. You're nothing but a cornered rat. After his little speech, he shot me a triumphant grin. My gaze shifted to Sophia. Is this what you want to? She didn't speak, her silence a clear answer. The whole situation was pathetic. Were they really this desperate? It was a truly ugly sight. What was meant to happen would happen. Perhaps fearing I had misunderstood, Sophia finally spoke, her voice flat. Ben, let's get a divorce. I nodded. Fine. You'll get what you asked for. Sophia looked stunned. She clearly hadn't expected me to agree so readily. But I just stared at her calmly and, with a speed that seemed to shock her, slid 2 documents across the desk. The divorce agreement and the stock transfer agreement for her shares. Naturally, along with her signature, she would be transferring back the mountain of imaginary debt. Are you done? I asked coolly. If so, you can go. Sign these. I'll have Mark file them. My words choked off whatever she had been about to say. Finally, Sophia looked at me, utterly lost. She seemed to realize, for the first time, that things were spinning out of her control. 3 days before the court hearing, the divorce decree I had been so eagerly awaiting was finally in my hands. When Mark delivered it, he brought more good news. Ben, Sophia, and Julian got married this morning. Our lawyers are ready to file the breach of contract suit against him. I nodded. This ridiculous charade was finally coming to an end. Sophia would never know that the news of my company's impending bankruptcy was just a lie, a carefully constructed trap designed to make her sign away her rights and leave with nothing. The lawsuits were real, but they were all part of a prearranged game. The stage had been set long ago. Now, someone else would be carrying the burden of massive debt. The day of my hearing, the sun was bright. It had been a long time since I'd felt relaxed enough to simply appreciate the world around me. As I walked out of the courthouse, Mark looked at me, a wrinkle of concern on his brow. Ben, are we moving too fast by suing them right away? Could backfire. I smiled and clapped him on the shoulder. Don't worry. Everything we're doing is perfectly legal. We don't break the law, do we? I got into the car and headed back to the office. From this day forward, I was still the enviable Ben Cole. And Sophia? She was just a rat, scurrying in the gutters where she belonged. Everything was in place. I had complete faith in Mark's ability to execute the plan. As the date of their own hearing approached, however, Sophia grew increasingly uneasy. Getting rid of the company and its liabilities should have been a cause for celebration. But things in my company had stabilized far too quickly, and it made her nervous. No matter how meticulously I had planned this, an organization this large couldn't be a complete black box, especially to someone who had worked inside it. She was bound to hear something. But it was too late. There was no turning back now. Julian saw Sophia's restlessness and wrapped his arms around her from behind. She frowned, and after a long silence, she finally spoke. I want to see him again. Something about this feels wrong. Julian's expression immediately darkened. Sophia, you're divorced. It's too late for regrets. And don't forget what you did. He will never forgive you. He tried to reassure her. Don't worry. Even if he gets through this, we still have other cards to play. Sophia stared at the man before her, swallowing the words she wanted to say. She had read the divorce agreement carefully. It stated explicitly that after the divorce, all liabilities would be borne by Benjamin Cole alone. At the time, she had been ecstatic. But with time to think, she'd realized it. This kind of concession was completely out of character for me. And given my meticulous nature, it was impossible that my company's contracts would have such catastrophic flaws in the first place. In front of the courthouse, Julian held Sophia's hand, his eyes burning with cold hatred as he stared at me. A month ago, my company's fabricated lawsuit had concluded exactly as planned. Immediately after, my lawyers filed suit against Julian's company for breach of contract. Since signing the deal, he had been eagerly awaiting my default. He must have trusted Sophia so implicitly that he never bothered to read the fine print. My legal team hadn't changed much. They'd simply swapped the definitions of Party A and Party B throughout the document. At a glance, the two versions looked identical. Traitors deserve to be nailed to a pillar of shame for all time. Benjamin Cole, you really think you've won? Julian snarled. I'm telling you, I will make you pay for this. I shrugged, not bothering to engage with the idiot. So you failed at your little scheme. What good are empty threats now? He was a nobody who thought he could hit the jackpot by latching onto Sophia. From what I knew of her, Julian would never see a dime of the money she'd stashed away. Mr. Vance, I said with a pleasant smile, weren't you and Ms. Warner the ones who drafted this contract? You really are quite the team. I said it like a compliment, though I knew it would sting. You. He lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. I waved a hand and my bodyguards instantly intercepted him. Mr. Vance, if I recall correctly, your entire net worth is just over $1 million. Yet you had the nerve to sign a contract with me that included a $100 million penalty clause. A bit greedy, don't you think? I paused, letting it sink in. Don't worry. You can spend the rest of your life paying it off. Then, I turned my smiling face to Sophia. Ms. Warner, regarding your fraudulent transfer of assets before the divorce, my lawyers are already preparing the lawsuit. Rest assured, I will make sure you live out your days in utter poverty. As soon as the words left my mouth, the color drained from Sophia's face. She took a few steps forward, forcing a smile. Ben, I know I was wrong. Please don't be so cruel. You don't need that money. Can't you just let this go? I looked at the woman before me as if she were a complete stranger, because she was, in my eyes, Sophia didn't even qualify as an enemy. A lion doesn't concern itself with ants. Without another word, I walked into the courthouse. I didn't actually need to be here today, but I wanted to see the looks on their faces when the verdict was read. A guilty pleasure, you could say. The outcome was never in doubt. When I emerged again, the bright sunlight felt like a new beginning. Ben, wait. A woman's voice called out from behind me, accompanied by the frantic clicking of high heels on pavement. I didn't have to turn to know it was Sophia. Inside the courtroom, her expression had shifted through a dozen shades of shock and despair. It had been highly entertaining. Ms. Warner, I said without turning, I'd advise you to just end it yourself. It will be less painful. My words cut her to the core. She stumbled forward and dropped to her knees in front of me, tears streaming down her face. Ben, I'm truly sorry. It was all Julian's idea. He manipulated me, she sobbed. I know what I did was wrong. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive me? I just shook my head, disgusted by her pathetic, transparent performance. Sophia, my mistake was being too good to you. I'll let you think the world revolved around you. Did you forget how I dealt with my enemies when I was building this company from nothing? She looked up at my face, a storm of complex emotions, bitterness, regret. She probably couldn't even tell, swirling in her eyes. All her defiance crumbled into a desperate plea. I know I was wrong. I'll get back all the assets I transferred, okay? I'll divorce him tomorrow and disappear. I'll leave the city forever. Please, just let me go. She started bowing her head to the ground, over and over. I frowned, not out of pity, but because a crowd was starting to gather, their curious stares landing on us. Seeing the growing number of onlookers, I got into my car. Sophia was a master manipulator. This whole display wasn't about earning my forgiveness. It was about creating a public spectacle, hoping the attention would stop me from taking further action against her. It was a clever move, I'll admit. It complicated my plans. The original idea was to have them both disappear within a week. Now, that would have to change, but that was fine. If she didn't want the express train to hell, she could take the scenic route. It would just take a little longer. In my rearview mirror, I could see Sophia still kneeling on the cold pavement long after my car had pulled away, doing her best to play the part of a tragic, wronged woman for the crowd. I could already imagine the story she'd spin, that she'd made a mistake any woman could make, only to be cruelly cast aside. Or maybe she'd sling some mud my way, painting me as a cold-hearted monster who had used her and thrown her away. It didn't take long for me to legally recover every cent Sophia had tried to steal. All she had left to her name was a meager savings account and that condo in Lincoln Park, exactly as stipulated in the divorce agreement. Initially, giving her the condo was a strategic concession. Now, it seemed like a blessing in disguise. If she were truly homeless, who knows where the bitch would have run off to? Even AP. I can't watch someone 24/7. According to Mark's reports, Sophia was like a ghost these days. The passion she and Julian once had was gone, replaced by daily, screaming matches. She brought this on herself, and this was just the appetizer. I had a full-course meal plan for her. I gave her the best life imaginable. She was Mrs. Cole, a woman other people envied. But she was greedy. She looked at the company's money and started to believe it was hers. 5 years flew by. In that time, my company's growth was explosive. We were now preparing for our IPO. My life was better than ever. Sophia and Julian's, not so much. They fought every day and had a physical brawl at least once a week. It always ended badly. Sophia tried to file for divorce, but Julian refused. She screamed. She pleaded. She even threatened him, but he wouldn't budge. The sheer shamelessness in his eyes terrified her into silence. She had no doubt that even if they did divorce, he would kill her. I'd anticipated all of this. Julian had nothing left but a mountain of debt. If he lost Sophia, he'd lose his home. At least now, she was still a source of cash. Without her, his only way out would be suicide. Of course, I hadn't left them completely alone. Over the years, debt collectors showed up at their door periodically. Some were legitimate creditors. Others were sent by me. These guys were not polite. Some would just vandalize the property, but others got physical. By my rough count, the two of them have been beaten over 100 times in 5 years. Julian had his legs broken on 3 separate occasions. Sophia wasn't faring much better, living in a constant state of fear. The breaking point came when the collectors showed up again. This time, Julian tried to offer Sophia to them to settle the debt. She finally snapped. She took a deep breath and looked at him, her face a blank mask. I'm done with this life. Ben never intended to let us go. If we stay here, he'll torture us until we're dead. Julian was baffled. He raised an eyebrow, his voice low. What are you trying to say? You want revenge? It's useless. I've tried. I even stalked him, thinking I'd take him down with me. But he's got too much security. You can't get close. Sophia looked at him and mentally cursed his stupidity. A man who didn't even know his enemy's routines wanted to play at murder-suicide? Julian didn't know, but she did. They were being watched constantly. She poured herself a glass of water and sat on the couch. This condo is the only thing I have left, she said flatly. I've sold it. Julian's jaw dropped. He rubbed his ears as if he'd misheard, then forced a smile and took a step closer. Sophia, don't joke around. We're perfectly fine here. Why would you sell the condo? Before he could finish, Sophia's icy voice cut him off. Because we have to get out of Chicago, you idiot. Do you have any money? She took a sip of water. It's already done. I have the cash. We leave tonight. There will be people waiting for us at the port. She looked at him, her eyes cold. Once we're out of the country, we can get new identities. I'll give you a share of the money, and then we are done. We never see each other again. A slow, dark smile spread across Julian's face. You're the smart one, after all. Fine. I agree. The second we're on foreign soil, we go our separate ways. Sophia didn't react, just gave a faint, detached nod. The docks were dead quiet that night. The moment they stepped out of the car, 2 men led them onto a boat. After a tense night at sea, they finally reached a foreign shore. Just as Julian was cheering his newfound freedom, several short, stocky local men slammed him to the ground. His eyes went dark with fury, and a guttural roar escaped his throat. Sophia, what the hell is this? His only answer was her mocking laughter. She sauntered over, the thick sole of her boot pressing down on his face. What is this? This is because of you, you moron. I lost everything because of you. I was tortured for 5 years because of you. She ground her heel into his cheek. Enjoy your trip, Julian. I was surprised to find out you were worth something after all. 50 grand, can you believe it? She leaned in closer. Don't worry. When they're harvesting your organs to be flown all over the world, I'll be in Europe praying for you. Her words made the color drain from Julian's face. He knew exactly what she meant. But her victory lap didn't last long. The local men turned, smiling as they surrounded her. Ms. Warner, we didn't bring the cash with us today. You'll have to come with us to get it. Seeing their predatory grins, Sophia panicked. What are you doing? We had a deal. When they didn't move, her demeanor changed in a flash. Gentlemen, please. Keep the money. Consider it a tip for your troubles. I'll just be on my way now. She turned to leave, only to find her path blocked by several more men. Her face went pale. Brothers, please, let me go. I can make you all happy. Her words were met with roaring laughter. After a long moment, their leader stepped forward. Ms. Warner, you can still make us happy where you're going, he said. Someone paid a lot of money for you to be here. You didn't really think you could just waltz into Columbia and call the shots, did you? Before she could react, he lunged forward, his hand clamping around her throat. He squeezed with all his might, as if trying to crush her windpipe. I suggest you cooperate. It will be less painful for you. You don't want to end up like him, do you? The man showed no sign of letting up. As Sophia began to suffocate, she clawed at his arm, her vision blurring. She couldn't make out what he was saying anymore. The feeling of impending death shocked her into a moment of clarity, and she stopped struggling. Just as she thought it was over, he suddenly released his grip. You can't die, he grunted. The boss won't pay the final installment if you're dead. Sophia gasped for air, the world slowly coming back into focus. After a few moments, the suffocating terror subsided, and she looked up in despair. There, standing against the light, was a familiar figure in a black suit. It was my assistant, Mark. Ms. Warner, he said, his voice devoid of all emotion. Mr. Cole asked me to send his regards. He hopes you have a pleasant journey. Long after the locals had dragged them away, my phone rang. It was Mark. Ben, he said, the show is over. I hung up and stared out my office window at the city lights. Some people aren't worth remembering. Some roads don't lead back. Tomorrow was the day my company would ring the opening bell on Wall Street. This was a wonderful welcome gift.